Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 805. Narrated by Urwa bin al-Musayyib, Alqamah bin Waqtas and Ubaydullah bin Abdullah, about the story of Aisha, and their narrations were similar, attesting each other, when the liars said what they invented about Aisha, and the divine inspiration was delayed. Allah's apostle sent for Ali and Usama to consult them in divorcing his wife, i.e. Aisha. Usama said, "Keep your wife, as we know nothing about her except good." Barrera said, "I cannot accuse her of any defect except that she is still a young girl who sleeps, neglecting her family's dough which the domestic goats come to eat, i.e. she was too simple-minded to deceive her husband." Allah's apostle said, "Who can help me to take revenge over the man who has harmed me by defaming the reputation of my family? By Allah, I have not known about my family anything except good," and they mentioned, i.e. accused, a man about whom I did not know anything except good. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 806. Narrated by Abdullah bin Umar, Allah's apostle and Ubay bin Ka'b al-Ansari went to the garden where Ibn Sayyid used to live. When Allah's apostle entered the garden, he, i.e. Allah's apostle, started hiding himself behind the date palms as he wanted to hear secretly the talk of Ibn Sayyid before the latter saw him. Ibn Sayyid, wrapped with a soft decorated sheet, was lying on his bed murmuring. Ibn Sayyid's mother saw the Prophet hiding behind the stems of the date palms. She addressed Ibn Sayyid saying, "O Saf, this is Muhammad." Hearing that Ibn Sayyid stopped murmuring, or got cautious, the Prophet said, if she had left him undisturbed, he would have revealed his reality. See Hadith number 290, Vol 4 for details. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 807. Narrated by Aisha, the wife of Rafa'a al-Qurayza, came to the Prophet and said, "I was Rafa'a's wife, but he divorced me and it was a final irrevocable divorce. Then I married Abdurrahman bin Zubair, but he is impotent." The Prophet asked her, "Do you want to remarry Rafa'a? You cannot unless you had a complete sexual relation with your present husband." Abu Bakr was sitting with Allah's apostle and Khalid bin Said bin Alays was at the door waiting to be admitted. He said, "O Abu Bakr, do you hear what this woman is revealing frankly before the Prophet?" Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 808. Narrated by Abdullah bin Abu Malaika from Uqba bin al-Harith. Uqba married the daughter of Abu Iyab bin Aziz, and then a woman came and said, "I suckled Uqba and his wife." Uqba said to her, "I do not know that you have suckled me, and you did not inform me." He then sent someone to the house of Abu Iyab to inquire about that, but they did not know that she had suckled their daughter. Then Uqba went to the Prophet in Medina and asked him about it. The Prophet said to him, "How can you keep your wife, after it has been said, that both of you were suckled by the same woman?" So, he divorced her and she was married to another husband. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 809. Narrated by Umar bin al-Khattab, people were, sometimes, judged by the revealing of a divine inspiration during the lifetime of Allah's apostle, but now there is no longer any more new revelation. Now we judge you by the deeds you practice publicly, so we will trust and favor the one who does good deeds in front of us, and we will not call him to account about what he is really doing in secret, for Allah will judge him for that, but we will not trust or believe the one who presents to us with an evil deed even if he claims that his intentions were good." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 810. Narrated by Anas, a funeral procession passed in front of the Prophet and the people praised the deceased. The Prophet said, "It has been affirmed, paradise." Then another funeral procession passed by and the people talked badly of the deceased. The Prophet said, "It has been affirmed, hell." Allah's apostle was asked, "O Allah's apostle, you said it has been affirmed for both." The Prophet said, "The testimony of the people is accepted, for the believer are Allah's witnesses on the earth." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 811. Narrated by Abu al-Aswad, once I went to Medina where there was an outbreak of disease and the people were dying rapidly. I was sitting with Umar and a funeral procession passed by. The people praised the deceased. Umar said, "It has been affirmed, paradise." Then another funeral procession passed by. The people praised the deceased. Umar said, "It has been affirmed, paradise." Then another funeral procession passed by. The people praised the deceased. Umar said, "It has been affirmed, paradise." Then a third funeral procession passed by and the people talked badly of the deceased. Umar said, "It has been affirmed, hell." I asked Umar, "O chief of the believers, what has been affirmed?" He said, "I have said what the Prophet said." He said, "Allah will admit into paradise any Muslim whose good character is attested by 4 persons. We asked the Prophet, if there were 3 witnesses only. He said, "Even 3. We asked, if there were 2 only. He said, "Even 2. But we did not ask him about 1 witness." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 812. Narrated by Aisha, a fla asked the permission to visit me but I did not allow him. He said, "Do you veil yourself before me although I am your uncle?" Aisha said, "How is that?" Afla replied, "You were suckled by my brother's wife with my brother's milk." I asked Allah's apostle about it, and he said, "Allah is right, so permit him to visit you." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 813. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, the Prophet said about Hamza's daughter, "I am not legally permitted to marry her, as foster relations are treated like blood relations, in marital affairs. She is the daughter of my foster brother." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 814. Narrated by Amr bint Abdurrahman, that Aisha the wife of the Prophet told her uncle that once, while the Prophet was in her house, she heard a man asking Hafsa's permission to enter her house. Aisha said, "I said, O Allah's apostle, I think the man is Hafsa's foster uncle." Aisha added, "O Allah's apostle, there is a man asking the permission to enter your house." Allah's apostle replied, "I think the man is Hafsa's foster uncle." Aisha said, "If so and so were living, i.e. her foster uncle, would he be allowed to visit me?" Allah's apostle said, "Yes, he would, as the foster relations are treated like blood relations, in marital affairs." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 815. Narrated by Aisha, once the Prophet came to me while a man was in my house. He said, "O Aisha, who is this man?" I replied, "My foster brothers." He said, "O Aisha, be sure about your foster brothers, as fostership is only valid if it takes place in the suckling period, before 2 years of age." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 816. Narrated by Urwa bin Zubair, a woman committed theft in the Ghazwa of the conquest of Mecca, and she was taken to the Prophet who ordered her hand to be cut off. Aisha said, "Her repentance was perfect and she was married, later, and used to come to me, after that, and I would present her needs to Allah's apostle." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 817. Narrated by Zayd bin Khalid, Allah's apostle ordered that an unmarried man who committed illegal sexual intercourse be scourged 100 lashes and sent into exile for 1 year. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 818. Narrated by An-Nu'man bin Bashir, my mother asked my father to present me a gift from his property, and he gave it to me after some hesitation. My mother said that she would not be satisfied unless the Prophet was made a witness to it. I, being a young boy, my father held me by the hand and took me to the Prophet. He said to the Prophet, his mother, bint Rawaha, requested me to give this boy a gift. The Prophet said, "Do you have other sons besides him?" He said, "Yes." The Prophet said, "Do not make me a witness for injustice." Narrated Ash-Shabai that the Prophet said, "I will not become a witness for injustice." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 819. Narrated by Zadam bin Madrab, I heard Imran bin Husayn saying, the Prophet said, "The best people are those living in my generation, then those coming after them, and then those coming after, the second generation." Imran said, "I do not know whether the Prophet mentioned 2 or 3 generations after your present generation." The Prophet added, "There will be some people after you, who will be dishonest and will not be trustworthy and will give witness, evidences, without being asked to give witness, and will vow but will not fulfill their vows, and fatness will appear among them." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 820. Narrated by Abdullah, the Prophet said, "The people of my generation are the best, then those who follow them, and then those who follow the latter. After that there will come some people whose witness will go ahead of their oaths, and their oaths will go ahead of their witness." Ibrahim, a sub-narrator, said, "We used to be beaten for taking oaths by saying, 'I bear witness by the name of Allah or by the covenant of Allah.'" Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 821. Narrated by Anas, the Prophet was asked about the great sins. He said, "They are 1. To join others in worship with Allah. 2. To be undutiful to one's parents. 3. To kill a person, which Allah has forbidden to kill, i.e. to commit the crime of murdering. 4. And to give a false witness." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 822. Narrated by Abu Bakr, the Prophet said thrice, "Should I inform you out the greatest of the great sins?" They said, "Yes, O Allah's Apostle." He said, "To join others in worship with Allah and to be undutiful to one's parents." The Prophet then sat up after he had been reclining, on a pillow, and said, "And I warn you against giving a false witness," and he kept on saying that warning till we thought he would not stop. See Hadith number 7, Volume 8. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 823. Narrated by Aisha, the Prophet heard a man, reciting Quran, in the mosque, and he said, "May Allah bestow His mercy upon him. No doubt, he made me remember such and such verses of such and such surah which I dropped, from my memory." Narrated Aisha, the Prophet performed the tahajjud prayer in my house, and then he heard the voice of Abbas who was praying in the mosque, and said, "O Aisha, is this Abbas's voice?" I said, "Yes." He said, "O Allah, be merciful to Abbas." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 824. Narrated by Abdullah bin Umar, the Prophet said, "Bilal pronounces the adhan when it is still night, before dawn, so eat and drink till the next adhan is pronounced, or till you hear Ibn Maktum's adhan." Ibn Maktum was a blind man who would not pronounce the adhan till he was told that it was dawn. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 825. Narrated by Al-Miswar bin Makrama, some outer garments were received the Prophet, and my father, Makrama, said to me, "Let us go to the Prophet so that he may give us something from the garments." So, my father stood at the door and spoke. The Prophet recognized his voice and came out carrying a garment and telling Makrama the good qualities of that garment, adding, "I have kept this for you, I have sent this for you." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 826. Narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, the Prophet said, "Isn't the witness of a woman equal to half of that of a man?" The women said, "Yes." He said, "This is because of the deficiency of a woman's mind." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 827. Narrated by Uqba bin al-Harith, that he had married Yahya bint Abu Iyab. He said, "A black slave lady came and said, 'I suckled you both.' I then mentioned that to the Prophet, who turned his face aside." Uqba further said, "I went to the other side and told the Prophet about it. He said, 'How can you keep her as your wife, when the lady has said that she suckled both of you, i.e. you and your wife?' So, the Prophet ordered him to divorce her." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 828. Narrated by Uqba bin al-Harith, "I married a woman, and later on a woman came and said, 'I suckled you both.' So, I went to the Prophet, to ask him about it. He said, 'How can you keep her as a wife, when it has been said, that you were foster brother and sister? Leave, divorce, her.'" Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 829. Narrated by Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, whenever Allah's apostle intended to go on a journey, he would draw lots amongst his wives and would take with him the one upon whom the lot fell. During a ghazwa of his, he drew lots amongst us and the lot fell upon me, and I proceeded with him after Allah had decreed the use of the veil by women. I was carried in a howdah, on the camel, and dismounted while still in it. When Allah's apostle was through with his ghazwa and returned home, and we approached the city of Medina, Allah's apostle ordered us to proceed at night. When the order of setting off was given, I walked till I was past the army to answer the call of nature. After finishing I returned to the camp, to depart with the others, and suddenly realized that my necklace over my chest was missing. So, I returned to look for it and was delayed because of that. The people who used to carry me on the camel, came to my howdah and put it on the back of the camel, thinking that I was in it, as, at that time, women were light in weight, and thin and lean, and did not use to eat much. So, those people did not feel the difference in the heaviness of the howdah while lifting it, and they put it over the camel. At that time I was a young lady. They set the camel moving and proceeded on. I found my necklace after the army had gone, and came to their camp to find nobody. So, I went to the place where I used to stay, thinking that they would discover my absence and come back in my search. While in that state, I felt sleepy and slept. Safwan bin Mu'addal as-Sulami Adh-Dakwani was behind the army and reached my abode in the morning. When he saw a sleeping person, he came to me, and he used to see me before veiling. So, I got up when I heard him saying, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajun, we are for Allah, and we will return to him." He made his camel kneel down. He got down from his camel, and put his leg on the front legs of the camel, and then I rode and sat over it. Safwan set out walking, leading the camel by the rope till we reached the army, who had halted to take rest at midday. Then whoever was meant for destruction, fell into destruction. Some people accused me falsely, and the leader of the false accusers was Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul. After that we returned to Medina, and I became ill for 1 month while the people were spreading the forged statements of the false accusers. I was feeling during my ailment as if I were not receiving the usual kindness from the Prophet which I used to receive from him when I got sick. But he would come, greet, and say, "How is that, girl?" I did not know anything of what was going on till I recovered from my ailment and went out with Mista to the Mansi, where we used to answer the call of nature, and we used not to go to answer the call of nature except from night to night, and that was before we had lavatories near to our houses. And this habit of ours was similar to the habit of the old Arabs in the open country, or away from houses. So, I and Mista bint Rum went out walking. Mista stumbled because of her long dress, and on that she said, "Let Mista be ruined." I said, "You are saying a bad word. Why are you abusing a man who took part in the battle of Badr?" She said, "Oh Hanada, you there, didn't you hear what they said?" Then she told me the rumors of the false accusers. My sickness was aggravated, and when I returned home, Allah's apostle came to me, and after greeting he said, "How is that, girl?" I requested him to allow me to go to my parents. I wanted then to be sure of the news through them. Allah's apostle allowed me, and I went to my parents and asked my mother, "What are the people talking about?" She said, "Oh my daughter, don't worry much about this matter. By Allah, never is there a charming woman loved by her husband who has other wives, but the women would forge false news about her." I said, "Glorified be Allah. Are the people really taking of this matter?" That night I kept on weeping and could not sleep till morning. In the morning Allah's apostle called Ali bin Abu Talib and Usama bin Zayd when he saw the divine inspiration delayed, to console them about divorcing his wife, i.e. Aisha. Usama bin Zayd said what he knew of the good reputation of his wives and added, "O Allah's apostle, keep you wife, for, by Allah, we know nothing about her but good." Ali bin Abu Talib said, "O Allah's apostle, Allah has no imposed restrictions on you, and there are many women other than she, yet you may ask the woman servant who will tell you the truth." On that Allah's apostle called Barera and said, "O Barera, did you ever see anything which roused your suspicions about her?" Barera said, "No, by Allah who has sent you with the truth, I have never seen in her anything faulty except that she is a girl of immature age, who sometimes sleeps and leaves the dough for the goats to eat." On that day Allah's apostle ascended the pulpit and requested that somebody support him in punishing Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul. Allah's apostle said, "Who will support me to punish that person, Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul, who has hurt me by slandering the reputation of my family? By Allah, I know nothing about my family but good, and they have accused a person about whom I know nothing except good, and he never entered my house except in my company." Sa'd bin Mu'adh got up and said, "O Allah's apostle, by Allah, I will relieve you from him. If that man is from the tribe of the Aus, then we will chop his head off, and if he is from our brothers, the Hazraj, then order us, and we will fulfill your order." On that Sa'd bin Ubaidah, the chief of the Hazraj, and before this incident, he had been a pious man, got up, motivated by his zeal for his tribe, and said, "By Allah, you have told a lie, you cannot kill him, and you will never be able to kill him." On that Usaid bin al-Hattar got up and said, to Sa'd bin Ubaidah, "By Allah, you are a liar. By Allah, we will kill him, and you are a hypocrite, defending the hypocrites." On this the two tribes of Aus and Hazraj got excited and were about to fight each other, while Allah's apostle was standing on the pulpit. He got down and questioned them till they became silent, and he kept quiet. On that day I kept on weeping so much so that neither did my tears stop, nor could I sleep. In the morning my parents were with me, and I had wept for 2 nights and a day, till I thought my liver would burst from weeping. While they were sitting with me and I was weeping, an Ansari woman asked my permission to enter, and I allowed her to come in. She sat down and started weeping with me. While we were in this state, Allah's apostle came and sat down, and he had never sat with me since the day they forged the accusation. No revelation regarding my case came to him for a month. He recited Tashahhud, i.e., none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and Muhammad is his apostle, and then said, "O Aisha, I have been informed such and such about you. If you are innocent, then Allah will soon reveal your innocence, and if you have committed a sin, then repent to Allah and ask Him to forgive you, for when a person confesses his sin and asks Allah for forgiveness, Allah accepts his repentance." When Allah's apostle finished his speech, my tears ceased completely, and there remained not even a single drop of it. I requested my father to reply to Allah's apostle on my behalf. My father said, "By Allah, I do not know what to say to Allah's apostle." I said to my mother, "Talk to Allah's apostle on my behalf." She said, "By Allah, I do not know what to say to Allah's apostle." I was a young girl and did not have much knowledge of the Quran. I said, "I know, by Allah, that you have listened to what people are saying, and that has been planted in your minds, and you have taken it as a truth. Now, if I told you that I am innocent, and Allah knows that I am innocent, you would not believe me, and if I confess to you falsely that I am guilty, and Allah knows that I am innocent, you would believe me. By Allah, I don't compare my situation with you except to the situation of Joseph's father, i.e. Jacob, who said, so, for me, patience is most fitting against that which you assert, and it is Allah, alone, whose help can be sought. Then I turned to the other side of my bed hoping that Allah would prove my innocence. By Allah, I never thought that Allah would reveal divine inspiration in my case, as I considered myself too inferior to be talked of in the Holy Quran. I had hoped that Allah's apostle might have a dream in which Allah would prove my innocence. By Allah, Allah's apostle had not got up and nobody had left the house before the divine inspiration came to Allah's apostle. So, there overtook him the same state which used to overtake him, when he used to have, on being inspired divinely. He was sweating so much so that the drops of the sweat were dropping like pearls, though it was a cold, wintry day. When that state of Allah's apostle was over, he was smiling, and the first word he said, Aisha. Thank Allah, for Allah has declared your innocence. My mother told me to go to Allah's apostle. I replied, by Allah, I will not go to him and will not thank but Allah. So Allah revealed, verily, they who spread the slander are a gang among you. 24.11. When Allah gave the declaration of my innocence, Abu Bakr, who used to provide for Mista bin Uthatha, for he was his relative, said, by Allah, I will never provide Mista with anything because of what he said about Aisha. But Allah later revealed, and let not those who are good and wealthy among you swear not to help their kinsmen, those in need and those who left their homes in Allah's cause. Let them forgive and overlook. Do you not wish that Allah should forgive you? Verily, Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. 24.22. After that Abu Bakr said, yes. By Allah, I like that Allah should forgive me, and resumed helping Mista whom he used to help before. Allah's apostle also asked Zainab bint Yashir, i.e. the Prophet's wife, about me, saying, what do you know and what did you see? She replied, O Allah's apostle, I refrain to claim hearing or seeing what I have not heard or seen. By Allah, I know nothing except goodness about Aisha. Aisha further added, Zainab was competing with me, in her beauty and the Prophet's love, yet Allah protected her, from being malicious, for she had piety. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 830. Narrated by Abu Bakr, a man praised another man in front of the Prophet. The Prophet said to him, woe to you, you have cut off your companion's neck, you have cut off your companion's neck, repeating it several times, and then added, whoever amongst you has to praise his brother should say, I think that he is so and so, and Allah knows exactly the truth, and I do not confirm anybody's good conduct before Allah, but I think him so and so, if he really knows what he says about him. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 831. Narrated by Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, the Prophet heard someone praising another and exaggerating in his praise. The Prophet said, you have ruined or cut the man's back, by praising him so much. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 832. Narrated by Ibn Umar, Allah's apostle called me to present myself in front of him or the eve of the battle of Uhud, while I was 14 years of age at that time, and he did not allow me to take part in that battle, but he called me in front of him on the eve of the battle of the trench when I was 15 years old, and he allowed me to join the battle. Nafi said, I went to Umar bin Abdul Aziz, who was caliph at that time, and related the above narration to him. He said, this age, 15, is the limit between childhood and manhood, and wrote to his governors to give salaries to those who reached the age of 15. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 833. Narrated by Abu Said al-Khudri, the Prophet said, bath on Friday is compulsory for those who have attained the age of puberty. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 834. Narrated by Abdullah, Allah's apostle said, if somebody takes a false oath in order to get the property of a Muslim, unjustly, by that oath, then Allah will be angry with him when he will meet him. Al-Ashadh informed me, by Allah. This was said regarding me. There was a dispute about a piece of land between me and a man from the Jews who denied my right. I took him to the Prophet. Allah's apostle asked me, "Do you have an evidence?" I replied in the negative. He said to the Jew, "Take an oath." I said, "O Allah's apostle, he will surely take an oath and take my property unjustly." So, Allah revealed, "Verily, those who purchase a little gain at the cost of Allah's covenant and their oaths." 3.77. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 835. Narrated by Ibn Abu Malaika, Ibn Abbas wrote that the Prophet gave his verdict on the basis of the defendant's oath. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 836. Narrated by Abu Wail, Abdullah bin Mas'udi, said, "Whoever takes a false oath in order to grab some property unjustly, Allah will be angry with him when he will meet him." Allah confirmed that through his divine revelation, verily, those who purchase a little gain at the cost of Allah's covenant and their oaths, they will have a painful punishment. 3.77. Al-Ashadh bin Qais came to us and asked, "What is Abu Abdurrahman, i.e. Abdullah, telling you?" We told him what he was narrating to us. He said, "He was telling the truth. This divine verse was revealed in connection with me. There was a dispute between me and another man about something, and the case was filed before Allah's apostle, who said, 'Produce your two witnesses or else the defendant is to take an oath.' I said, 'The defendant will surely take a false oath caring for nothing.' The Prophet said, 'Whoever takes a false oath in order to grab others' property, then Allah will be angry with him when he will meet him.' Then Allah revealed its confirmation. Al-Ashadh then recited the above divine verse. 3.77. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 837. Narrated by Ibn Abbas, Hilal bin Umayyah accused his wife before the Prophet of committing illegal sexual intercourse with Sharik bin Sama. The Prophet said, "Produce a proof, or else you would get the legal punishment, by being lashed on your back." Hilal said, "O Allah's apostle, if any one of us saw another man over his wife, would he go to search for a proof?" The Prophet went on saying, "Produce a proof or else you would get the legal punishment, by being lashed on your back." The Prophet then mentioned the narration of Li'an, as in the Holy Book. Surat al-Nur, 24. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 838. Narrated by Abu Huraira, Allah's apostle said, "There are three persons whom Allah will neither talk to nor look at, nor purify from the sins, and they will have a painful punishment. They are: 1. A man possessed superfluous water on a way and he withheld it from the travelers. 2. A man who gives a pledge of allegiance to a Muslim ruler and gives it only for worldly gains. If the ruler gives him what he wants, he remains obedient to it, otherwise he does not abide by it. 3. A man bargains with another man after the Asr prayer and the latter takes a false oath in the name of Allah, claiming that he has been offered so much for the thing and the former believes him and buys it." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 839. Narrated by Ibn Mas'udi, the Prophet said, "Whoever takes a false oath in order to grab others' property, then Allah will be angry with him when he will meet him." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 840. Narrated by Abu Huraira, the Prophet asked some people to take an oath, and they hurried for it. The Prophet ordered that lots should be drawn amongst them as to who would take an oath first. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 841. Narrated by Abdullah bin Abu Awfa, a man displayed some goods in the market and took a false oath that he had been offered so much for them though he was not offered that amount. Then the following divine verse was revealed, "Verily, Those who purchase a little gain at the cost of Allah's covenant and their oaths will get painful punishment. 3.77 Ibn Abu Awfa added, such person as described above is a treacherous riba eater, i.e. eater of usury. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 842. Narrated by Abu Wail from Abdullah, the Prophet said, whoever takes a false oath in order to grab another man's, or his brother's, property, then Allah will be angry with him when he will meet him. Then Allah confirmed this by revealing the divine verse, verily, those who purchase a little gain at the cost of Allah's covenant and their oaths will get painful punishment. 3.77 Al-Ashadh met me and asked, what did Abdullah tell you today? I said, so and so. He said, the verse was revealed regarding my case. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 843. Narrated by Talha bin Ubaydullah, a man came to Allah's Apostle asking him about Islam. Allah's Apostle said, you have to offer 5 compulsory prayers in a day and a night, 24 hours. The man asked, is there any more compulsory prayers for me? Allah's Apostle said, no, unless you like to offer nawafil, i.e. optional prayers. Allah's Apostle then added, you have to observe fasts during the month of Ramadan. The man said, am I to fast any other days? Allah's Apostle said, no, unless you wish to observe the optional fast voluntarily. Then Allah's Apostle told him about the compulsory zakat. The man asked, do I have to give anything besides? Allah's Apostle said, no, unless you wish to give in charity voluntarily. So, the man departed saying, by Allah I will neither do more nor less than that. Allah's Apostle said, if he has said the truth he will be successful. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 844. Narrated by Abdullah, the Prophet said, whoever has to take an oath should swear by Allah or remain silent. I.e., he should not swear by other than Allah. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 845. Narrated by Salama, once Allah's Apostle said, you people present your cases to me and some of you may be more eloquent and persuasive in presenting their argument. So, if I give someone's right to another, wrongly, because of the latter's tricky presentation of the case, I am really giving him a piece of fire, so he should not take it. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 846. Narrated by Abdullah bin Abbas, Abu Sufyan told me that Heraclius said to him, when I inquired you what he, i.e. Muhammad, ordered you, you replied that he ordered you to establish the prayer, to speak the truth, to be chaste, to keep promises and to pay back trusts. Then Heraclius added, these are really the qualities of a prophet. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 847. Narrated by Abu Huraira, Allah's Apostle said, the signs of a hypocrite are 3. 1. Whenever he speaks, he tells a lie. 2. Whenever he is entrusted, he proves to be dishonest. 3. Whenever he promises, he breaks his promise. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 847. Narrated by Abu Huraira, Allah's Apostle said, the signs of a hypocrite are 3. 1. Whenever he speaks, he tells a lie. 2. Whenever he is entrusted, he proves to be dishonest. 3. Whenever he promises, he breaks his promise. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 848. Narrated by Muhammad bin Ali, Jabir bin Abdullah said, when the Prophet died, Abu Bakr received some property from Al-Allah bin al-Hadrami. Abu Bakr said to the people, whoever has a money claim on the Prophet, or was promised something by him, should come to us, so that we may pay him his right. Jabir added, I said, to Abu Bakr, Allah's Apostle promised me that he would give me this much, and this much, and this much, spreading his hands 3 times. Jabir added, Abu Bakr counted for me and handed me 500 gold pieces, and then 500, and then 500. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 849. Narrated by Said bin Jubair, a Jew from Hira asked me which one of the two periods Musa, i.e. Prophet Moses, completed. I said, I don't know, but wait, till I see the most learned Arab and inquire him about it. So, I went to Ibn Abbas and asked him. He replied, Moses completed the longer and better period. Ibn Abbas added, no doubt, an apostle of Allah always does what he says. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 850. Narrated by Ubaydullah bin Abdullah bin Utbah, Ibn Abbas said, O Muslims! How do you ask the people of the scriptures, though your book, i.e. the Quran, which was revealed to his prophet is the most recent information from Allah and you recite it, the book that has not been distorted? Allah has revealed to you that the people of the scriptures have changed with their own hands what was revealed to them, and they have said, as regards their changed scriptures, this is from Allah, in order to get some worldly benefit thereby. Ibn Abbas added, isn't the knowledge revealed to you sufficient to prevent you from asking them? By Allah, I have never seen any one of them asking, Muslims, about what has been revealed to you. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 851. Narrated by An-Nu'man bin Bashir, the Prophet said, the example of the person abiding by Allah's orders and limits, or the one who abides by the limits and regulations prescribed by Allah, in comparison to the one who do wrong and violate Allah's limits and orders, is like the example of people drawing lots for seats in a boat. Some of them got seats in the upper part while the others in the lower part. Those in the lower part have to pass by those in the upper one to get water, and that troubled the latter. One of them, i.e. the people in the lower part, took an axe and started making a hole in the bottom of the boat. The people of the upper part came and asked him, saying, what is wrong with you? He replied, you have been troubled much by my coming up to you, and I have to get water. Now if they prevent him from doing that, they will save him and themselves, but if they leave him, to do what he wants, they will destroy him and themselves. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 852. Narrated by al-Allah, that when the Ansar drew lots as to which of the emigrants should dwell with which of the Ansar, the name of Uthman bin Mazun came out, to be in their lot. al-Allah further said, Uthman stayed with us, and we nursed him when he got sick, but he died. We shrouded him in his clothes, and Allah's apostle came to our house, and I said, addressing the dead Uthman, O Abu as-Saib. May Allah be merciful to you. I testify that Allah has blessed you. The Prophet said to me, how do you know that Allah has blessed him? I replied, I do not know, O Allah's apostle. May my parents be sacrificed for you. Allah's apostle said, as regards Uthman, by Allah he has died, and I really wish him every good, yet, by Allah, although I am Allah's apostle, I do not know what will be done to him. Allah added, by Allah I shall never attest the piety of anybody after him. And what Allah's apostle said made me sad. Allah further said, once I slept and saw in a dream, a flowing stream for Uthman. So I went to Allah's apostle and told him about it. He said, that is, the symbol of his deeds. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 853. Narrated by Aisha, whenever Allah's apostle intended to go on a journey, he used to draw lots among his wives and would take with him the one on whom the lot fell. He also used to fix for every one of his wives a day and a night, but Sauda bint Zameh gave her day and night to Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, intending thereby to please Allah's apostle. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 48, Hadith number 854. Narrated by Abu Huraira, Allah's apostle said, if the people knew what is the reward of making the call, for the prayer, and, of being in, the first row, in the prayer, and if they found no other way to get this privilege except by casting lots, they would certainly cast lots for it. If they knew the reward of the noon prayer, they would race for it, and if they knew the reward of the morning, i.e. Fajr, and Isha prayers, they would present themselves for the prayer even if they had to crawl to reach there. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 855. Narrated by Sal bin Sa'd, there was a dispute amongst the people of the tribe of Bani Amr bin Auf. The Prophet went to them along with some of his companions in order to make peace between them. The time for the prayer became due, but the Prophet did not turn up. Bilal pronounced the adhan, i.e. call, for the prayer, but the Prophet did not turn up, so Bilal went to Abu Bakr and said, "The time for the prayer is due and the Prophet I detained, would you lead the people in the prayer?" Abu Bakr replied, "Yes, you wish." So, Bilal pronounced the iqamah of the prayer and Abu Bakr went ahead, to lead the prayer, but the Prophet came walking among the rows till he joined the first row. The people started clapping and they clapped too much, and Abu Bakr used not to look hither and thither in the prayer, but he turned round and saw the Prophet standing behind him. The Prophet beckoned him with his hand to keep on praying where he was. Abu Bakr raised his hand and praised Allah and then retreated till he came in the first row, and the Prophet went ahead and lead the people in the prayer. When the Prophet finished the prayer, he turned towards the people and said, "O people! When something happens to you during the prayer, you start clapping. Really, clapping is permissible for women only. If something happens to one of you in his prayer, he should say, Subhanallah, glorified be Allah, for whoever hears him, saying so, will direct his attention towards him. O Abu Bakr! What prevented you from leading the people in the prayer when I beckoned to you, to continue?" Abu Bakr replied, "It did not befit the son of Abu Quhafa to lead the prayer in front of the Prophet." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 856. Narrated by Anas, it was said to the Prophet, "Would that you see Abdullah bin Ubay." So, the Prophet went to him, riding a donkey, and the Muslims accompanied him, walking on salty barren land. When the Prophet reached Abdullah bin Ubay, the latter said, "Keep away from me. By Allah, the bad smell of your donkey has harmed me." On that an Ansari man said, to Abdullah, "By Allah, the smell of the donkey of Allah's apostle is better than your smell." On that a man from Abdullah's tribe got angry for Abdullah's sake, and the two men abused each other, which caused the friends of the two men to get angry, and the two groups started fighting with sticks, shoes, and hands. We were informed that the following divine verse was revealed in this concern, and if two groups of believers fall to fighting, then make peace between them. 49.9. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 857. Narrated by Kulthum bint Uqba, that she heard Allah's apostle saying, "He who makes peace between the people by inventing good information or saying good things, is not a liar." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 858. Narrated by Sal bin Sa'd, once the people of Quba fought with each other till they threw stones on each other. When Allah's apostle was informed about it, he said, "Let us go to bring about a reconciliation between them." Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 859. Narrated by Aisha, the following verse, "If a woman fears cruelty or desertion on her husband's part, i.e. the husband notices something unpleasant about his wife, such as old age or the like, and wants to divorce her, but she asks him to keep her and provide for her as he wishes." 4.128, there is no blame on them if they reconcile on such basis. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 860. Narrated by Abu Hurairah and Zayd bin Khalid al-Juhani, a Bedouin came and said, "O Allah's apostle! Judge between us according to Allah's laws." His opponent got up and said, "He is right. Judge between us according to Allah's laws." The Bedouin said, "My son was a laborer working for this man, and he committed illegal sexual intercourse with his wife. The people told me that my son should be stoned to death, So, in lieu of that, I paid a ransom of 100 sheep and a slave girl to save my son. Then I asked the learned scholars, who said, your son has to be lashed 100 lashes and has to be exiled for 1 year. The Prophet said, no doubt I will judge between you according to Allah's laws. The slave girl and the sheep are to go back to you, and your son will get 100 lashes and 1 year exile. He then addressed somebody, O Yunus, go to the wife of this man, and stone her to death. So, Yunus went and stoned her to death. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 861. Narrated by Aisha, Allah's Apostle said, if somebody innovates something which is not in harmony with the principles of our religion, that thing is rejected. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 862. Narrated by Al-Bara bin Azib, when Allah's Apostle concluded a peace treaty with the people of Hudaybiyah, Ali bin Abu Talib wrote the document and he mentioned in it, Muhammad, Allah's Apostle. The pagans said, don't write, Muhammad, Allah's Apostle, for if you were an apostle we would not fight with you. Allah's Apostle asked Ali to rub it out, but Ali said, I will not be the person to rub it out. Allah's Apostle rubbed it out and made peace with them on the condition that the Prophet and his companions would enter Mecca and stay there for 3 days, and that they would enter with their weapons in cases. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 863. Narrated by Al-Bara, when the Prophet intended to perform Umrah in the month of Dhul Qa'dah, the people of Mecca did not let him enter Mecca till he settled the matter with them by promising to stay in it for 3 days only. When the document of treaty was written, the following was mentioned, these are the terms on which Muhammad, Allah's Apostle, agreed to make peace. They said, we will not agree to this, for if we believed that you are Allah's Apostle we would not prevent you, but you are Muhammad bin Abdullah. The Prophet said, I am Allah's Apostle and also Muhammad bin Abdullah. Then he said to Ali, rub off the words, Allah's Apostle, but Ali said, no, by Allah, I will never rub off your name. So, Allah's Apostle took the document and wrote, this is what Muhammad bin Abdullah has agreed upon, no arms will be brought into Mecca except in their cases, and nobody from the people of Mecca will be allowed to go with him, i.e. the Prophet, even if he wished to follow him, and he, the Prophet, will not prevent any of his companions from staying in Mecca if the latter wants to stay. When the Prophet entered Mecca and the time limit passed, the Meccans went to Ali and said, tell your friend, i.e. the Prophet, to go out, as the period, agreed to, has passed. So, the Prophet went out of Mecca. The daughter of Hamza ran after them, i.e. the Prophet and his companions, calling, O uncle! O uncle! Ali received her and led her by the hand and said to Fatima, take your uncle's daughter. Zayd and Ja'far quarreled about her. Ali said, I have more right to her as she is my uncle's daughter. Ja'far said, she is my uncle's daughter, and her aunt is my wife. Zayd said, she is my brother's daughter. The Prophet judged that she should be given to her aunt, and said that the aunt was like the mother. He then said to all, you are from me and I am from you, and said to Ja'far, you resemble me both in character and appearance, and said to Zayd, you are our brother, in faith, and our freed slave. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 864. Narrated by Ibn Umar, Allah's Apostle set out for the Umrah, but the pagans of Quraysh prevented him from reaching the Kaaba. So, he slaughtered his sacrifice and got his head shaved at Al-Hudaybiyah, and agreed with them that he would perform Umrah the following year and would not carry weapons except swords and would not stay in Mecca except for the period they allowed. So, the Prophet performed the Umrah in the following year and entered Mecca according to the treaty, and when he stayed for 3 days, the pagans ordered him to depart, and he departed. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 865. Narrated by Sal bin Abu Hathma, Abdullah bin Sal and Muhi Isa bin Mas'udi bin Zayd went to Khaybar when it had a peace treaty with the Muslims. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 866. Narrated by Anas, Ar-Rubi, the daughter of a Nadra broke the tooth of a girl, and the relatives of Ar-Rubi requested the girl's relatives to accept the irsh, compensation for wounds etc., and forgive the offender, but they refused. So, they went to the Prophet who ordered them to bring about retaliation. Anas bin Nadra asked, O Allah, Apostle, will the tooth of Ar-Rubi be broken? No, by him who has sent you with the truth, her tooth will not be broken. The Prophet said, O Anas, Allah ordains retaliation. Later the relatives of the girl agreed and forgave her. The Prophet said, there are some of Allah's slaves who, if they take an oath by Allah, are responded to by Allah, i.e. their oath is fulfilled. Anas added, the people agreed and accepted the irsh. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 867. Narrated by Al-Hasan al-Basri, by Allah, Al-Hasan bin Ali led large battalions like mountains against Muawiyah. Amr bin al-As said, to Muawiyah, I surely see battalions which will not turn back before killing their opponents. Muawiyah, who was really the best of the two men, said to him, O Amr, if these killed those and those killed these, who would be left with me for the jobs of the public, who would be left with me for their women, who would be left with me for their children? Then Muawiyah sent two Qurayshi men from the tribe of Abd Ishams called Abdurrahman bin Samura and Abdullah bin Amir bin Qura'is to Al-Hasan, saying to them, go to this man, i.e. Al-Hasan, and negotiate peace with him and talk and appeal to him. So, they went to Al-Hasan and talked and appealed to him to accept peace. Al-Hasan said, we, the offspring of Abdul Muttalib, have got wealth and people have indulged in killing and corruption, and money only will appease them. They said to Al-Hasan, Muawiyah offers you so, and appeals to you and entreats you to accept peace. Al-Hasan said to them, but who will be responsible for what you have said? They said, we will be responsible for it. So, whatever Al-Hasan asked, they said, we will be responsible for it for you. So, Al-Hasan concluded a peace treaty with Muawiyah. Al-Hasan, al-Basri, said, I heard Abu Bakr saying, I saw Allah's apostle on the pulpit and Al-Hasan bin Ali was by his side. The Prophet was looking once at the people and once at Al-Hasan bin Ali, saying, this son of mine is a Sayyid, i.e. a noble, and may Allah make peace between two big groups of Muslims through him. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 868. Narrated by Aisha, once Allah's apostle heard the loud voices of some opponents quarreling at the door. One of them was appealing to the other to deduct his debt and asking him to be lenient, but the other was saying, by Allah I will not do so. Allah's apostle went out to them and said, who is the one who was swearing by Allah that he would not do a favor? That man said, I am that person, O Allah's apostle. I will give my opponent whatever he wishes. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 869. Narrated by Abdullah bin Ka'b bin Malik, from Ka'b bin Malik, Abdullah bin Abu Hadrat al-Islami owed Ka'b bin Malik some money. One day the latter met the former and demanded his right, and their voices grew very loud. The Prophet passed by them and said, O Ka'b, beckoning with his hand as if intending to say, deduct half the debts. So, Ka'b took half what the other owed him and remitted the other half. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 870. Narrated by Abu Huraira, Allah's apostle said, there is a sadaqah to be given for every joint of the human body, and for every day on which the sun rises there is a reward of a sadaqah, i.e. charitable gift, for the one who establishes justice among people. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 871. Narrated by Urwa bin Az-Zubair, Az-Zubair told me that he quarreled with an Ansari man who had participated in the Battle of Badr in front of Allah's apostle about a water stream which both of them used for irrigation. Allah's apostle said to Az-Zubair, O Zubair. Irrigate your garden first, and then let the water flow to your neighbor. The Ansari became angry and said, O Allah's apostle, is it because he is your cousin? On that the complexion of Allah's apostle changed, because of anger, and said, to Az Zubair, I irrigate your garden, and then withhold the water till it reaches the walls, surrounding the palms. So, Allah's apostle gave Az Zubair his full right. Before that Allah's apostle had given a generous judgment beneficial for Az Zubair and the Ansari, but when the Anzan irritated Allah's apostle he gave Az Zubair his full right according to the evident law. Az Zubair said, by Allah, I think the following verse was revealed concerning that case, but know by your Lord they can have no faith until they make you judge in all disputes between them. 4.65 Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 872. Narrated by Jabir bin Abdullah, my father died and was in debt. I suggested that his creditors take the fruits, i.e. dates, of my garden in lieu of the debt of my father, but they refused the offer, as they thought that it would not cover the full debt. So, I went to the Prophet and told him about it. He said, to me, when you pluck the dates and collect them in the murbad, i.e. a place where dates are dried, call me, Allah's apostle. Finally he came accompanied by Abu Bakr and Umar and sat on the dates and invoked Allah to bless them. Then he said, call your creditors and give them their full rights. So, I paid all my father's creditors in full, and yet 13 extra wasks of dates remained, 7 of which were ajwa and 6 were lawn, or 6 of which were ajwa and 7 were lawn. I met Allah's apostle at sunset and informed him about it. On that he smiled and said, go to Abu Bakr and Umar and tell them about it. They said, we perceived that was going to happen, as Allah's apostle did what he did. Sahih Bukhari Volume 3, Book 49, Hadith number 873. Narrated by Abdullah bin Ka'b, that Kabi bin Malik told him that in the lifetime of Allah's apostle he demanded his debt from Ibn Abu Hadrad in the mosque. Their voices grew louder till Allah's apostle heard them while he was in his house. So he lifted the curtain of his room and called Kabi bin Malik, saying, O Kabi. He replied, Labbaik. O Allah's apostle. He beckoned to him with his hand, suggesting that he deduct half the debt. Kabi said, I agree, O Allah's apostle. Allah's apostle then said, to Ibn Abu Hadrad, get up and pay him the rest.